We are experiencing an unprecedented systemic crisis. The collapse of the global financial markets has triggered a crisis that transcends the financial and banking sectors and impacts on the real economy. It has also converged with other crises: energy, food, and climate. These crises have their roots in a model of overproduction and overconsumption, exacerbated by an aggressive expansion of corporate trade policies. And an unsustainable exploitation of natural and energy resources. They mark the failure of the neoliberal development model. Could people-centred regional integration offer a solution?
Integración regional.
Regional integration.
Regional integration.
Regional integration. Our own integration from the south.
Regional integration.
Regional integration. Integration.
Regional integration.
Well, regional integration, of course, as a strategy is not new. It's been around in different continents throughout the world for several decades now. However, the crisis, in a sense, puts it back at the centre of the agenda.
Probably the starting point is to mention the fact that there are quite a number of issues in Africa and even throughout the world that no single country will be able to solve on its own without the support of its neighbors or without the support of other countries. And therefore it is necessary and critical to set in motion a process at the regional level that will bring about the complementarities of different countries within the same region.
I think regional integration, in my opinion, is the only viable response from the south to the global crisis. Because we are weak countries. If we are divided, we become even weaker.
La integración regional es imprescindible en este proyecto, por eso planteamos de que es una oportunidad para América Latina, porque no hay posibilidades de que haya un pueblo que se pueda salvar solo en este desastre mundial.
The weaknesses and strengths of each country can be complemented by the other, and neighboring countries have more stake in peace, in prosperity, and in growing together. Regional integration is important and is something that we can look at as an alternative, as a possible solution.
If we're together, we can face up to a challenge, to a problem, to a difficulty more effectively than if each one of us tries to deal with this problem.
No únicamente los movimientos sociales, sino que incluso muchos gobiernos, ante la crisis económica mundial, han coincidido en decir que la alternativa es la integración regional. En el apoyo mutuo entre países y sociedades afines y cercanas, la posibilidad de resguardarse para superar la crisis.
El cambio de este paradigma neoliberal, de este modelo de desarrollo productivista basado solamente en la exportación de nuestros recursos naturales, no lo podemos hacer aisladamente. No se puede hacer país por país.
Si no se quiere ver subordinados a las soluciones de siempre que pueden imponer las grandes potencias, me parece que la única forma es construir bloques integrados de países que bajo otras reglas puedan, sin embargo, tener las palancas suficientes para entrar de una manera más justa en el escenario global.
I think right now it's quite imperative for us really to think about regional integration. Being countries that are
specializing in exporting primary products. Right? With the current global crisis, definitely the prices are going to fall. You can see that it's very, very necessary to have our own integration where we depend on the regional markets that are more or less harmonious to what we are producing and how we are living.
The lesson is not to go for export-oriented industrialization, in which we're looking at first-world markets. We really need to create more of a collective arrangements where we depend on one another's markets at the regional level, and at the same time help one another develop, with not according to the neoliberal free market model, but having genuine economic cooperation. Really, this is the time for real regionalism to emerge.
Regional integration is certainly very important for African countries to be able to deal with the current crisis. As economies, they are fragmented internally, and they're also fragmented regionally, so they are totally dependent on what happens in the world. They are integrated in the world in a very wrong way. So the only way they can actually get themselves out of this crisis is to discover their ability to cohere internally and increase their strength with other countries in the region.
Creemos en una integración que sea complementaria, que tenga reciprocidad, que pueda reducir las asimetrías entre nuestros países, que un refuerzo de una acción colectiva de los países de América Latina puede contribuir justamente para crear una mayor autonomía del continente en relación a que hoy es la dependencia de exportación e importación.
Well, the concept of regional integration was at first really quite progressive, and the idea behind it, like the idea behind the Association for Southeast Asian Nations, was to create a regional bloc that would be protected by high tariffs that would then create a regional market that would sustain regional industrialization. However, in the late 80s, 1990s, what happened was that the regional concept was hijacked by neoliberalism. This is now the situation where we're at, and what we really need at this point is to recapture the idea of regional integration, recapture it as a mechanism of raising living standards, promoting our industries, protecting our industries, protecting our agriculture, and having a good dynamic division of labor within our regions in order to be able to get our regions and the different countries and communities within it to move towards sustainable development.
There are two kinds of regional integration. The first integration that we see, which I just explained as a failed model, is the open integration process or open regional integration. But we need a different and alternative integration where countries can be of help to each other. In ASEAN right now, the integration is about a convergence to promote the market economy in the region itself. I think now with these two crises, we learn that new forms of exchange and production can take place, so that small and medium industries can be given priority over big corporations. So we need a new kind of interaction, a new kind of trading practices whereby you're promoting a new kind of economic development, a development where people matter.
Regional integration should be one that allows us to increase our capacity to produce the things that we need to meet our imperatives, to work together from different communities across countries to build our solidarity around ourselves. Regional integration should be therefore a way to transform the way we live today, the way we produce today, and the way we consume today in Africa.
To reorientate our production towards our own domestic needs. In this, I'm talking with a regional perspective, not simply looking at one country, but a group of countries. And that will make more sense and stabilize production and consumption within the regions.
Podríamos ver lo que es la realidad productiva de la región en este momento. Grandes campos de producción de soja, de unos pocos productos agrícolas y al mismo tiempo cada vez más también veríamos las explotaciones minerales en las regiones más montañosas. Este es el mapa, esta es la fotografía de lo que se ve en la región. Un modelo productivo que nos condena a la exportación de pocos productos, materias primas y recursos naturales básicamente. Esta es la situación que creo, o la resolvemos todos juntos como pueblos del continente que estamos afectados por este mismo sistema, o cada uno en sus países, en su región, en su localidad, no lo vamos a poder resolver.
Yo creo que desde la parte más institucional y gubernamental del Mercosur se deberían hacer esa pregunta: ¿cuál es el modelo de desarrollo que se quiere para la región? Y comenzar a apostar a la complementación productiva real, verdadera, sustentable.
Y principalmente en un modelo de desarrollo que cambie radicalmente lo que tenemos hoy, un modelo de desarrollo económico basado en, digamos, en el mercado, en la renta, favoreciendo al capital, originando un gran desastre en los grandes recursos importantes que tiene la región. Apostamos a un modelo de desarrollo y de integración donde principalmente se ponga como centro de atención nuevamente a la persona humana, al ser humano.
Hablar de ese nuevo modelo de desarrollo tiene que ver con la soberanía sobre nuestro territorio, sobre nuestros recursos, soberanía energética, soberanía en un modelo productivo que garantice la soberanía alimentaria.
Evidentemente tiene que ser un modelo productivo que no esté basado en la mercantilización, que no esté basado en el saqueo de la naturaleza, que no esté basado en la agroexportación, que no esté basado en la exportación de productos mineros, sino que tiene que ser un modelo de desarrollo orientado hacia el mercado interno y el mercado regional, orientado hacia la satisfacción de las necesidades básicas de la población y cuya fuerza motriz del desarrollo sea la elevación del nivel de vida de la población.
I think there has been an overemphasis in the debates in social movements and the political debate at large the last decades on the national and the global arenas. And we have underutilized the local and the regional. But it doesn't automatically mean that the regional provides solutions. We have a very negative model from the European Union, which is a very advanced model of integration, regional cooperation. But it has been top-down and it's been economy-centered.
Un proceso de integración para que sea exitoso requiere un cambio en el modelo económico y este cambio implica cambiar los valores, implica cambiar la lógica económica de la integración y la lógica ideológica y cultural de la integración y volverla una lógica más cercana a la vida de los pueblos.
Tal vez lo que debamos hacer es tratar de desprendernos de algunos preconceptos vinculados a la integración que tienen que ver básicamente con la idea de pensar que la integración es exclusivamente comercio o intercambiar mercancías o ese tipo de elementos, cuando en realidad si hablamos por ejemplo de desarrollo endógeno o de desarrollos locales, tal vez debamos pensar en otra idea de integración donde pasa más por la integración de las culturas, de las tecnologías apropiadas, del desarrollo de producciones locales.
I think the problems now and in the past is that a lot of the government's regional integration are very much driven by economic interests and market interests. In that kind of development, a lot of times the interests of the people are being left out. If you look at the three pillars of the ASEAN regional integration, the political security pillars, the economic pillars, and the social-cultural pillars, the most well-planned and well-implemented pillars is the economic pillars.
But the question that we ask ourselves is, what kind of a regional integration do we need? So this is what we are saying, it has to be people-driven and not corporate-led or led by the desire to make money or the desire to make profits. So we need to engage in this process of an alternative regional integration mechanism where we can also talk not only about the sub-region at the sub-African level, but to also link it up continent-wide and then link with other regions, especially the so-called South-South cooperation.
We want a SADC region that is for the people, a SADC regional integration that talks about development for the poor of the poorest. We want a SADC region which will sit down and say, look, there are these EPAs coming up. What do we do as SADC?
Nosotros consideramos que un Mercosur tiene que ser un Mercosur social, no solamente una integración económica, sino social, que vaya tendiente al desarrollo de los países y mejorar la condición de vida y que todos podamos acceder a los beneficios tantas veces postergados como salud, educación, empleo, seguridad social, que son los fundamentales para que un pueblo se desarrolle.
La integración regional no es solamente una salida a la crisis, es la construcción, ¿no?, de una nueva sociedad, o en la recuperación de un continente integrado. No solamente le apostamos, luchamos por una integración desde los pueblos, para los pueblos y por los pueblos. Y una integración que pase no solamente en función de nuevos modelos de producción, sino que más bien en la recuperación de una cosmovisión mucho más amplia, mucho más integradora.
But we believe that several key areas cannot be dealt with at the national level. These would include areas like policy for the environment, a policy for the use of natural resources, policy on water, the question of food, but also the question of new institutions for regional finance. These would be the building blocks, in a sense, of a different model of development.
We should have, to begin with, productive sectors that relate to each other and complement each other across countries. So countries should get together to find complementary sectors and industries that benefit from each other. Countries should come together also to generate regional markets for the goods that they produce in the countries and the regions. And countries should get together to provide the basic economic infrastructure, from credit to finance to energy to transport, to the things that are necessary to get the economies to cohere among each other.
Then I think the issue of building new institutions. African countries have been talking about building new institutions at the sub-regional level and even at the continental level, like an African Monetary Fund that could pull together our reserves and try to help countries that are in need, especially during this period. Unfortunately, the political will is still lacking.
So that is why this has to be a multi-directional and democratic process. And it will be gradual. It will move faster in some areas, as it must with food and water, and more gradually in other areas, like energy coordination. And it will take even longer, but very importantly, must move towards economic development and diversification and coordination of our industrial capacities, our mining capacities. But the important thing is we have to start developing cooperative arrangements, coordinations, development goals, and in some areas, very clear integration. That is the removal of artificial boundaries that impede us making advances in these areas.
Si hubiésemos tenido un Banco del Sur hace 2 o 3 años cuando se formuló la necesidad de crearlo, ¿qué hubiese pasado? Hubiésemos tenido hoy una herramienta a la cual pudiesen apelar nuestros gobiernos como medida paliativa o para implementar programas conjuntos contra la crisis.
We should be thinking about how do we make the fact that the banks are now funded by us, they should be our banks. How do we make sure that the kind of profits which in the end these banks are going to be making goes into like citizens' funds that can be controlled on a regional basis to invest in the social economy.
Hay otra cosa que es fundamental para nosotros y por lo cual la integración regional en nuestra región en particular es importante, que es la energía. La región produce más energía de la que consume, solo que hay muchas personas que no tienen cómo consumir esa energía que producimos, sea porque ella es exportada o sea porque ella es mal distribuida, ¿no? Entonces ese tipo de irracionalidades necesariamente deben ser resueltas a nivel regional.
And it is very evident already that the climate crisis, above all, will affect Africa more seriously than any other region of the world. And therefore the climate challenges demand of African governments that they work together.
The other point about the regional level is that it kind of makes sense in terms of many aspects of our economy, even the economy that we need, not just the economy that they've created. You know, for example, transport. Clearly, we have to think regionally if we want to address the problem of climate change and reduce the amount of air travel. We've got to think about railways. Now, that makes sense at a regional level, not either just a national level. Clearly, you know, it can't yet work at a global level.
So this is a very big challenge now to people's movements in our regions, is how to reclaim these regions and make them regions led by and for the peoples of these regions. And there is a big positive for us in Africa, is that this is a very powerful sentiment amongst the peoples.
Ahí es donde nosotros decimos que la integración regional no está dada por la naturaleza, sino que es un proceso que requiere la voluntad política y la lucha de intereses. Y es por eso que nosotros como movimiento de organizaciones sociales hace un tiempo ya que venimos articulando para pelear por este otro tipo de integración y sobre todo frenar lo que se llama el regionalismo abierto o la integración guiada por el mercado.
Y el rol de los movimientos, yo pienso que primero que es una cosa, que es una lucha política, ¿no? Y si es una lucha política tenemos que construir fuerza de los movimientos que son aquellos que estamos dispuestos a organizar el pueblo, a construir movilizaciones, a construir procesos de debates colectivos.
Europe has to be democratic or it cannot be. And it takes a crisis to prove this point. This is where we all come in. This is where we press for a radical change. Without a social policy, it is, again, condemned to face up to new challenges that, again, will put into doubt its very existence.
Bueno, la experiencia indica que la continuidad de cualquier proceso de cambio depende de la solidez del movimiento social. Durante los últimos 30 o 40 años hemos vivido experiencias en las cuales gobiernos progresistas de alguna manera pasan como algo efímero si no existe una base social que les dé coherencia y consistencia y solidez. Entonces yo pienso que la estabilidad en el cambio la da la fuerza del movimiento social.
No podemos pensar que de manera paternalista los gobiernos, por más progresistas, por más buenas intenciones que tengan, los gobiernos puedan transformar el modelo productivo, el modelo de relaciones sociales, el modelo de relaciones políticas que rigen a la sociedad global de hoy. Los movimientos sociales no solo deben conformarse con exigir, levantar sus reivindicaciones, deben asumirse como actores de la transformación, como actores del cambio que se necesita y de los propios procesos de integración.
Es necesario movimiento campesino, pueblos originarios, movimiento de mujeres, en fin, los trabajadores en general, de tratar de apostar y poner en su agenda, de ir profundizando otro tipo de integración para la región.
Y porque estamos convencidos que otro mundo es posible y ese mundo nosotros somos los constructores. O sea, son batallas que tenemos que ganar.
I think the last two crises shows urgent need for workers working together with farmers and fishermen and with civil society and with people's organizations in order to push for a regional integration that can benefit people.
We see there's a lot of good aspiration on the ground. people are creating changes, new lifestyles, new cultural values are being created, but the political imagination is fragmented, and we don't have enough of coming together on more common agendas. And that is when we do that, when those fragmented movements come together more, then we can recreate hope, and then we can again see advances